hopefully in a couple of years I can upgrade my system. That's where I'm at.
Oh, a couple of years. Hopefully you can do it earlier than that.
Well, yeah.
Especially Jarrod.
You'll be joining me.
Yeah, my wife's been wanting a MacBook Air, so I might have to upgrade her before I upgrade myself.
Do you know what, Jarrod? I've got a suggestion to you. Why don't you sell your system to Ben after you've upgraded? And then Ben can see how far he can take it.
Perfect.
We have Benji Kaiser from Benji Kaiser YouTube channel, and we have Jarrod from Jarrod's Tech YouTube channel. Both of the guys super knowledgeable, absolutely amazing, killing it on their channels, and I have the honor to have a chat with them about the best bang for buck laptops for creators. Now, I know both of them have been testing laptops for a long time. Go check them out, but let's jump right in. When it comes to laptops, what is the best bang for buck laptop for creators? I know both of you guys have tested like a buttload of laptops, and the best bang for buck is like a price point, or at the point where you think, okay, this is the best investment that you get. You know, you get a lot of spec performance in return. If you go above that, you start to see negligible amount in return, and then if you go any less, you kind of, your investment doesn't make sense, if that makes sense. So guys, I'd love to know, what is the best bang for buck laptop, what you would recommend for people to buy if they're saying, look, I'm a creative professional. Okay, let's say they do any sort of things, or you can just slot them into a category, what you think they should do. What is the best bang for buck laptop?
So I mostly test gaming laptops, but obviously having the CPU and GPU power for gaming is going to translate pretty well over to content creators. So from that perspective, I've found the Lenovo Legion 5 to be pretty good as a good all-round machine. For content creation specifically, this might not be, you know, the minimum specification you'd want, but I really liked the Gigabyte Aero 15 OLED just because the screen is just really nice, and I've used the OLED series for the past few generations personally, so I think the new version of that would be what I would get for myself. It's a bit pricey, obviously, but again, I suppose if you're a creative professional, you know, it kind of comes with the territory, whether you're getting like a Gigabyte or M1 MacBook.
What are the price points for those Legion 5 and the Aero laptops?
So the Legion 5 can be picked up for about $1,200 US with 8-core processor and RTX 3060 graphics. So I think it's similar for the Ryzen and Intel versions. From my own testing, generally I've found the Intel version to do slightly better in creator workloads, whether that's Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Premiere, or DaVinci Resolve. But the Ryzen one also has the advantage of more battery life and more performance on battery, so it's kind of a bit of a trade-off.
Yeah, in the Gigabyte Aero, we have a 3080 here, the YD version, with the 11800H, and that's about $2,500. But they make more affordable versions in the $1,800 price point range for the 3060 with the 11800H. So,
what are you thinking, Ben?
For me, like, I agree with Jarrod in the fact of if you're looking for color gamut range, that is a great price point. The Gigabyte Aero 15, as far as like bang for buck. I mean, a 3060, 11800H, and a Pantone validated display. I mean, it's fantastic. One area that I don't love the Gigabyte personally is just like, I don't really love the form factor of it. Now, they did release a new variant this year, which I'm hoping to get my hands on very soon. And it looks very promising. To me, the older one felt kind of like builder blocks, like kind of like pieced together rather than like one nice solid piece of like keyboard deck, side panels, bottom panel. But it's still a great machine, like no doubt. So I would definitely recommend that one. I've recommended it a lot. But one thing I do like a lot this year is the StudioBook Pro 16 with the dial. And you can actually get the Ryzen 5900X version for like $2,000 flat, which for that much screen, for that much technology evolution with like actual physical upgrade and that dial, I really like. That is like a really great workflow performance quality machine. Love that. Fingerprints, awful. Terrible fingerprints. I have pretty oily fingers and it's just like now if we're gonna go like budget, I'm gonna lean towards like the G14 because it's just, I mean, it's insane. You get a 5900 HS, you get an RTX 3060 or 3070, and you're in kind of the $1,400 to like $1,700 price range, depending on the exact GPU you get. Crazy, and good battery life. So, and then if you lean towards like HP, the Omen has been a pretty strong player for a long time, but the Legion, like Jarrod is saying, has really stepped up the game slightly above in multiple ways. Software, I mean, their ability to control so much of the system and have better battery performance, as well as actual performance while you're using it, is just second to none. Oh, last one. The Legion 7 Slim was probably one of my favorites of last year. I love that laptop. So that's a lot, but like those are kind of my picks.
I mean, that's very interesting because both of you have actually tested in some form the Apple M1 chips.
Mm-hmm.
So why did you recommend Windows laptops instead of Apple laptops? When we're talking about best bang for buck, is it just because of the price range? Do you think the lower end of where the MacBooks come in, I think the 14-inch starts at about $2,000, that's in dollars USD. Do you think that's a bad investment, or do you think for that amount of money the Windows laptops give you a bit of a better experience?
So I've only tested one MacBook laptop in the last 10 years, and it's behind me there, which is the MacBook Pro 16. It was extremely impressive. Battery life was amazing. Performance on battery was amazing. Screen looks great. It's very quiet. Did I say the performance was good? I think I might have. So it is extremely good. It does come at a cost. There are obviously other negatives like upgradability and repairability. Everyone knows that.
Yep.
I guess the reason I find it hard to recommend is because it's still my first experience with a MacBook. And as someone that's used Windows for like 20 years now, it's just hard for me to get used to the software flow of things. So for me personally, it doesn't really work out too well because I'm just not that familiar with it. But for like a creative professional, yeah, for sure, I could easily recommend that to someone that's familiar with Mac OS and has no problems with that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was thinking like straight video editing, like performance. I am most likely gonna have my charger with me, that kind of thing. That's usually where my mind goes. And as far as bang for buck, you can't beat a dedicated GPU currently. And so that's why, like, for me, the gaming laptops and the Studio Book is just a great pick. Now, if we're talking use case, if you're a graphic designer, I would get a MacBook Air or MacBook Pro M1 and never look back. I mean, like, it's such a perfect choice. If you're a video editor with a little extra money and you find yourself on the go a lot, then yeah, absolutely the MacBook Pro 16 makes sense. However, you're going to start out at $2,500 and at $512. And for me as a video editor, I would either buy an extra hard drive to bring along with me, or I would upgrade to 2 terabytes. Now, if I upgrade to 2 terabytes, we're now at $3,000.
Wow.
And that's the base model plus 2 terabytes. And I can, for me, yes, it is amazing. It's wonderful. But best bang for buck, it doesn't really, to me, it doesn't say best bang for buck. It says best premium laptop. If we're going to talk the
Awesome.
Razer Blade versus the MacBook Pro 16, there's no question in my book. I'm going to buy a MacBook Pro.
What about specifically for the price point? Like if you're buying a creative laptop, let's say you're just wondering how much should I be spending in order to get like a good investment in return for my money? Like, okay, do I need to spend $3,000? Is 1,000 enough? Is it 1,500? Is it $2,000? Like, where do you think that kind of point is?
It's a good question.
Yeah, go, Jarrod.
I was going to say, I think I'll leave this one to Ben because we were talking before, and I was happy to admit that I primarily use Puget Systems benchmarks, and my goal is just to kind of see how things stack up. So I don't do a whole lot of actual, hands-on testing for dropped frames, what's it actually like to edit on day-to-day kind of stuff. So perhaps you might have a better idea of that.
Yeah, so I would say like the best price point that I've seen where it's like you get negligible, as you said, performance increase, Lauri, is around the $1,500 to $1,800 price point. Above that, if you're gonna be shooting like red footage, or shooting on like an ARRI camera, I mean, to me, like you need to either have like a desktop PC or absolutely max out whatever you can find. So it's like there's this area where most people are. 1080p, 4K video editing. That's where most people are. And the best bang for buck is going to be around $1,500 to $1,800 to $2,000. Like that's really where you need to be making your decision, which is why the Mac 16 didn't make my best bang for buck.
Okay, it's just above that price range.
You just don't need it. I mean, I was editing on the HP Victus with the Ryzen 5600H, and it had 0 drop frames for 4K, had about 2,000 for B-RAW, and it had about 11,000 for red footage. So as you can see, that's the 4K sweet spot for that computer. It's about a $1,200 computer out the door for the model I had, maybe a little less, and it still did fine with B-RAW, you know? So that's my opinion. Like, where's your sliding scale? And then graphic design, your sliding scale, in my opinion, is about $800 to that $1,200 price point for graphic design artists, stuff like that.
Jarrod, I know, has tested both desktop and laptop stuff.
Yeah.
So why would you go laptop instead of a desktop PC? Let's say if we take the portability aspect out of the equation, right? So someone who doesn't need it necessarily to be portable, then would you go a laptop or a tower? Just interested in any sorts of thoughts you might have on that topic.
Yeah, so I'm kind of struggling because the first thing that came to mind is what I always say: if you need portability, then a laptop, because good luck carrying a desktop PC plus keyboard plus mouse plus LED battery plus monitor. It's not going to work out too well.
Yeah.
I mean, there are definitely laptops that have enough power, but I mean, if you don't need portability, I mean, it depends on, you know, prices with the whole chip shortage and that, but traditionally in the past at least, it has been generally cheaper to build yourself a desktop PC if you know what you're doing. Not too sure about pre-built systems. Obviously that comes with a bit of an additional cost. Not sure how that compares, but as someone that likes to just sit at home with a big desk, you know, connect maximum screens and peripherals, I like the desktop route, but that's me.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because just this question would have been simpler maybe a year ago, but just at this point where, let's say, GPU availability is questionable, some of the CPU availability, RAM availability now, you know, motherboards, everything it's questionable, right? That's why it makes it difficult. But even at that point, people are saying, oh, look, laptops have RTX 3080s. I can get it on a laptop.
Exactly.
Do you think laptops are still going to perform as good as desktops? And is this point and this situation in the world why you would say, okay, laptops maybe make sense? Or do you think, do you know what, still paying scalper prices might even still get you a better performance if you don't need portability?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question, and it's something I've kind of looked at in the past. So I've done a series of videos where I try to compare laptop versus desktop. So I've done one where I compared, obviously the CPUs were different, but I did the best of my ability to have like same amount of core and threads on each. But I did say 3060 laptop versus 3060 desktop. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but surprisingly, the 3060 desktop wasn't actually that much better than the laptop. So a 3060 laptop is definitely still very capable. Now, once you step up to say 3070 laptop versus 3070 desktop, the gap starts getting a bit bigger because the power limits between the two start getting bigger, and that's where the performance is. Same again when you step up even further to RTX 3080. So the gap between 3080 laptop and desktop is it's quite significant.
Yeah.
And you kind of start thinking, at what point does it become misleading? So someone that doesn't really know any better, they're shopping for a laptop and a desktop, they see two things have a 3080, and they might be inclined to think, hey, these are going to perform equivalently or similarly because they've got the same name or whatever, but it's just not the case.
Yeah, I think so. They're saying, the difference in VRAM for the 3080 desktop versus the 3080 laptop, I mean, alone is...
Oh, that's a weird one.
Substantial. What do you say weird? I'm curious.
Well, because if I recall, the 3080 desktop is a 10 gig card, although I think they're doing a 12 gig refresh soon, whereas the laptop, there's an 8 gig, and there's also a 16 gig option. So
I'm
on the
looking
laptop
at that now.
side, you can have two different VRAM configurations.
There's a 16 gig option for 3080?
Yeah, it says right here, yes.
Laptop.
The RTX 3080 mobile has a 16 gig VRAM, while the desktop version has 10 gigs. So then why would the desktop version be more powerful?
Just higher power limit.
Higher power limit. Okay.
It's like 300 plus watts or something, and on the laptop I think 3080 topped out at like 165 with dynamic boost,
gosh.
which is like less
So
than
it's
half.
double.
And then, there's no 3090 laptop GPU yet. I mean, that would be insane. I just tested that on the Omen pre-built, and I was like, oh my gosh. Just
It's pretty crazy.
Crazy performance.
Yep.
I mean, Ben, I'm curious what your thoughts are, because we've gone like a little bit deeper, like
Yeah.
on a previous episode.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of laptop, desktop, what do you think? Because I think availability is like another question now.
Yeah, so okay, here you go. Perfect. I want to upgrade my desktop system. I use a desktop system predominantly in my business, and then for my day-to-day work, as in at my work as at my job, I use a MacBook Pro 2015. Okay, it's just what they supplied me with years ago, and still using it. And so with that, like, I like the laptop as like, I go to the office, I work from home, like I can go around the house, and it's nice. But for my workflow in my business here, like on YouTube, I predominantly use a desktop PC. I like Jarrod's saying, I stand at my desk, and that's where I stay all day, and I got my monitors, and I've got my keyboard, and I've got all my hard drives, and I've got just everything, big beefy audio system, so I can, listen to whatever, sermons or music or whatever I'm doing. And so for me, I love the station. I like an environment. I'm very ritualistic. I'm very methodical in my routine. And so that I can just walk up to my desk and everything's ready. I love that. So personally, I like the desktop. But what I don't like, and if I was in a buying situation, I would not want a desktop right now. I got my desktop 3 years ago when parts were like no big deal. And I want to upgrade my system, but I can't. And so because I don't want to spend what it takes to upgrade my system right now. So I'm just struggling through with a 1660 Super and a 3900X. I'm laggy at times and it's frustrating, but I don't want to pay that jump. I could literally buy a laptop with double the performance of my system, possibly double, maybe like, whatever, for $1,500 rather than getting this GPU and then buying a CPU upgrade for probably $2,000 or more. So right now today I'd buy a laptop. Hopefully in a couple of years I can upgrade my system. That's where I'm at.
Oh, a couple of years. Hopefully you can do it earlier than that.
Well, yeah.
Especially Jarrod.
You'll be joining me.
Yeah. My wife's been wanting a MacBook Air, so I might have to upgrade her before I upgrade myself.
Do you know what, Jarrod? I've got a suggestion to you. Why don't you sell your system to Ben after you've upgraded? And then Ben can see how far he can take it.
Perfect. Sounds good.
I don't know if I'm smart enough to use your system. You sound like you have it like jerry-rigged, perfectly.
Basically.
Or Jarrod-rigged.
Good to go. Anyone can use it at this point.
Okay, all right. So just don't mess with it when it gets to my
don't
house.
Change anything.
Just to add an interesting side note as well, because obviously I've been testing desktops and trying to see if there's availability and things. And like one of the biggest questions in the beginning of the year I had the same was, okay, is it possible to build something even with scalper prices? And is it compatible? Can we even put that out there and say this is possible? And actually I was surprised at what is possible, especially because of the Intel's 12th gen. Because for video editors, creative professionals, the iGPU inside adds a lot of performance into the mix. So you don't necessarily need a beefy GPU if you need like a video playback, because those encoders and decoders inside the iGPU really help, and they're like, I'd say even better at times than the NVENC inside the NVIDIA GPUs. So I put a system together like an RTX 3060 and 12600K, that's i5, and then you can roughly get that even at scalper prices, $1,500. And I was surprised at that, because like this gets you insane 4K performance, right? And that's 32 gigabytes of RAM. If you have a little bit more to spare, you can get like an i7 and 64 gigabytes for about $2,000, and maybe a little bit of spare to whatever SSDs you want to add and stuff like that. But it is possible. But I think it's more of a like decisions whether you need the portability or not. at this time. Like Ben was saying, portability, if that's a thing, obviously the availability has an impact there as well. But I think we all agree that if you are stationary at home, probably a tower is a better choice.
I think so.
I think so.
One or two questions
Hey, don't push it.
I want to have for you guys is the biggest laptop surprise that you've seen in the last, let's say, year, right? Whatever it has been, whichever laptop, anything that's been like, whoa, that's different.
I might need a moment to think about that. Seems like Ben's got something. Dial.
Ben's got something.
Yeah, I'm very impressed by this. It seems like it would be a gimmick, but I really like this. This is awesome. And also, I would say the Rogue.
So what is it, what you're
Flow.
showing there?
This is the StudioBook Pro 16 OLED. People complain
From
about
Asus.
the OLED. Yeah, from Asus. Thank you. But I've never had a bad experience with OLED, and it also sounds like Jarrod doesn't mind OLED, but a lot of people complain about like burn-in and a lot of those things. So this and the X13 from Asus as well, the Rogue Flow X13.
Both Asus.
Yeah. I hate to say it, yeah, like I'm really impressed by their stuff because I don't want to like be categorized as like a one brand kind of person. They're just pushing the limits, especially for creators. Not many people are doing that, and so I'm hat off to them.
And just in regards to the OLED stuff, so I have actually talked to Asus with regards to OLED burn-in specifically. They don't seem too worried about it either. They've got a lot of stuff built into their laptops to try and mitigate it as well, like pixel refresh, transparent windows, move everything around X number of pixels over whatever period of time. So yeah, I don't think it's as big of an issue as people make it out to be.
I will agree. I will piggyback on that because I think a lot of times when a technology comes out, it has its issues.
Yeah.
And then people that's like in their head. Like,
this is how it is forever now.
Forever. Yeah. OLED is this problem. Rather than saying OLED. Yeah, OLED had this problem and here's how they resolved it.
So what do you think, Jarrod? What would be the most like surprising or like most innovating bit about laptops? Anything or one laptop that you're like, whoa, do you know what? This is actually really useful.
I don't know. It all just kind of seems like it's, oh yeah, another one of these.
It can.
I'm trying to think of something, but I really can't. That dial pad does seem interesting. I didn't actually get to test that, unfortunately. I tested the model just below it, the 16X, where it has it kind of like built into the touchpad.
We were talking about that.
It's got similar functionality, but it's not physical, so it's probably not as cool, I imagine.
Is tactile. I think that's the thing. Like, let me just show you real quick. So, like, for instance, when you're using this thing, like, you would think it'd be like awkward to use it because it's like, okay, am I gonna think? But like, your hand rests right where you need it to, and so you're literally just like cruising along. The only thing that sucks about this thing is that these are actual buttons, and when you're using it, you want to kind of be able to like click, as you're going about things, and you can't. You have to like get your finger over here and like click. So I wish they would turn this trackpad into a full click trackpad. That was my biggest complaint. But yeah, otherwise, I would ship this to you and let you like play with it if it wasn't cost as much to probably ship it to you as it would to just buy it where you are.
Are we getting anything out of Jarrod on this one? Or just,
I don't think so. I don't know.
The same?
I think the thing is with when the gaming market right now, it's like there's not a lot of like revolutionary things. Am I right or wrong on that? What do you think?
Yeah, not really. I mean, all the slightly different things coming this year, as mentioned, are all kind of from Asus. So the Zephyrus Duo 16, they have that interesting thing where it's got a 4K 120Hz panel, but when you swap it down to 1080p, you can go up to 240Hz. So normally on previous 4K screens, if you drop the resolution, the refresh rate stays the same. But with this one, you actually get faster refresh rate. So say, 120Hz 4K is probably still enough for gaming.
Yeah.
I mean, I game 4K 60Hz, so I'd be happy with 120Hz anyway. But yeah, you could take it down a level, go to 1080p, get better performance, because obviously 1080p just needs less resources to run. But then you also get the benefit of 240Hz refresh rate, so kind of best of both worlds.
Super fast, like ninja fast. That's awesome.
Okay, last quick one is this. What is the biggest mistake you've seen people making when buying a laptop, creative laptops in general?
I did a whole video recently about mistakes, and I can't even remember any of it.
We'll link it up. Make sure.
Yeah, go check it out. It's going to be really good.
I think people are way too paranoid when it comes to temperatures and thermals.
Interesting.
Personally, I have absolutely no problem if my laptop is chugging along 95 degrees Celsius on the CPU all day. Whatever, as long as it's not like downclocking significantly in order to like run. Like if it's thermal throttling and I'm losing performance, that's a bit of a different story. But if it's like 95 degrees Celsius, but performance is fantastic and it's working perfectly well, it's not something I bother worrying about. But a lot of people seem to be under the false assumption that, oh, my CPU and GPU can't pass 70 degrees Celsius. I think because they're just used to temperatures on the desktop PC side. But then on the laptop side, where you don't have the space for cooling, it just is what it is. So there's almost no way you're going to get a laptop running at 70 degrees Celsius while actually like running a game or some intensive workload. It's just not how it is. But people worry about it and think, oh no, is my hardware going to die in 6 months, when it's just not the case.
Yeah, I would agree to that for sure. And then I would also add on not buying in the right price point. I think that's probably the biggest mistake people make, buying and not knowing like how that computer is going to fit into their use case. So people a lot of times will not spend enough money to get what they need to then not be frustrated, especially for video editing. People come to me with questions like, hey, can I use this? And it's like a mobile processor and just like a low cores and then it has like 8 gigs of RAM. And I'm like, no, if you want to do 4K, that's just not going to work. And for an extra $200 or $300, which is a lot of money, no doubt, but for an extra $200 or $300, you'll have a good experience. And then also on the other end, people that just spend too much. I think you don't need to spend too much. Oftentimes people spend a lot off of excitement and dopamine and adrenaline of like, this is gonna like this machine, I'm gonna make $1 million this year because I have a faster laptop. You're not going to, sorry.
There's motivational speech from Ben for you.
yeah, or a demotivational regards to don't spend so much money. I think like you need to find that sweet spot of purchasing, and I think people either a lot of times, not always, a lot of times spend too little, or they spend too much, and you got to find that sweet spot. And also, the number one mistake is not watching Jarrod's Tech.
That's a pretty big mistake.
It's a pretty big mistake. People comment all the time about how wrong my reviews are because Jarrod said this. No joke. Really? I get those a lot. So congrats on being the source of more truth than me.
If I go to my channel analytics and see like viewers also watch these channels, like Jarrod's channel is one of the first ones there, and I'm like, oh great, we're getting all the traffic. But it's true. It's because you're absolutely awesome. Even Linus mentioned you on one of these videos, didn't he?
Yeah, and a few, I think.
Especially like the RAM and, the dual rank or single rank RAM issue, I think, when what you were saying there, what you found that the laptop manufacturers did. I think no one else found that before.
Yeah, a lot of people are commenting that for the Legions. Like the Legion battery life and the Legion RAM. A lot of people are like, well, go check out Jarrod. And so, hoorah to you on the level of detail and care.
Oh, well done.
Like,
thanks.
It's grateful for the community for sure, and it's made me step up my game tremendously. I tend to be more conceptual and kind of overall, and less in the dirt and in the details, and so you've been pushing me to make better detailed content. So I'm still struggling.
I think that's the only reason that I uncovered that RAM issue realistically is because I just have so much data that when I put in the result for the RTX 3070 Legion 5 Pro, I was just like, hang on, this is like way below everything else. That doesn't make sense. So when you see that, you look into it further, and it becomes kind of obvious at that point.
Yeah.
Thanks guys for watching. Likes if you enjoyed it, subs if you'd like to see more, and let me know in the comment section below who should be our next guest and what topic should we cover next. See you soon.